Welcome back. Today I am going to start with the muscles of pelvic floor. So even though the levator ani and coccygeus muscles neither play important role in stabilizing the lumbar region, but it is mentioned because of the proximity of the column and possible influence of the linkages that forms the pelvis. The levator ani muscle comprises of two distinct parts, the iliococcygeus and pubococcygeus, which help to form the floor of the pelvis and separate the pelvic cavity from perineum. The left and right broad muscle seats of levator ani form the major portion of the floor of the pelvis. Now we will discuss about the functions. The voluntary contraction of levator ani muscles help to constrict the opening in the pelvic floor and prevent the unwanted micturition and defecation or stress incontinence, which means they will be able to control the urine. If you want to control the urine, sometimes you may be traveling, you have to control your urine. These muscles will be helping to control it. The involuntary contraction of these muscles occurring during the coughing, sneezing, or when the intra-abdominal pressure is raised. In women, these muscles help to support the uterus. So during pregnancy, the muscle can be stretched or traumatized, which can result in stress incontinence whenever the intra-abdominal pressure is raised. In men, the damage to this muscle may occur after prostate surgery. The coccygeus muscle assists the levator ani in supporting the pelvic viscera and maintain the intra-abdominal pressure. Now we are going to discuss about one of the important factor you have to understand, that is injury prevention in squat lifting versus stoop lifting. So the image whatever you had seen here is stoop lifting. The prevalence of back problem in general population and difficulties of resolving this problem has generated a great deal of research. In the sense, there are so many controversies stating that some are telling the squat lift is better, but in other researchers they are telling this stoop, there is no difference between squat lift as well as stoop lift. So when we discuss about this, I want to explain you with the action of the muscles, as well as I want to explain about the momentum as well as torque producing by the respective muscle. So a great deal of focus has been on the squat lift versus the stoop lift. Now you just watch the video here. See, a person is lifting a weight. So this is the ideal posture, you can see, to lift the weight. See his back, it is perfectly straight. He is not even moving the back. And he is lifting it. We'll watch it again once more. See, his body is just closer to the weight. He is in the squatting position before lifting the weight. And see his back, he is not even moving it. In the perfect manner, he is lifting it up. So this is the squat lift. So before that, I'll explain you what is the muscle action which occur here, as well as the momentum which is occurring over here. So as I discussed in the first chapter about momentum, see, body is aligned over here, and this is a weight, WT I had mentioned, weight, and muscles have to produce a particular amount of torque in order to compensate the particular weight. So we'll calculate the distance between this weight as well as his body. Let's just consider this as a D, the distance. Now we'll consider, now we will consider the particular momentum respect to the each muscles. So one momentum we have to consider is erecta spinae. So when you're considering, before that I want to explain you what in by torque. Torque is not torque, the momentum. So if two weights or two forces are acting, one is the external force and another one is the internal force. If two forces are acting, the momentum will be the shortest distance between the each or two forces. So we'll calculate it. If you calculate the distance from here to the lumbar area, that is the shortest one, and when you are calculating from here to the body or to the knee and hip muscle, that is more. So when you are considering the momentum, the shortest distance will be from the weight to your lumbar area. So more torque will be produced by the lumbar area. Then afterwards only the strain or stress will be coming towards the leg area. So I'll explain it once more. When you are calculating the torque, it is like first you have to calculate the momentum. Momentum means the shortest distance between the two forces that is acting up. This is the external force and this is the internal force. We can consider as a posterior fascia or posterior structures. So posterior structures have to create a force in order to compensate the external force. So the muscles which are responsible are, one is recta spinae, one can be the gluteus maximus because they have to extend. Then another one is like hamstring will be working and gastrocnemius will be working in order to produce a posterior action. So when you are considering this muscle, the closest muscle or when you consider the momentum, the closest distance between the external force and internal force is near to the lumbar area. So when you are lifting a weight in this stoop posture, more momentum will be created by the lumbar area. There are more chances intervertebral disc will be more compressed over here. So when you are going ahead with the stoop lifting, there are more chances you can injure your back. Observe here. So he is just near to the see his body. He is aligned straight. And see his knee, it is just closer to the external force. His knee is very much closer to the external force, as well as his hip is more closer than the lumbar area. The lumbar area is here, but his hip is almost here. It is anterior pelvic tilted. So we'll consider the knee joint as well as the hip joint, that is more closer to the external force, which means the less distance is there, which is momentum will be more over here and as well as over the hip than compared to the lumbar area. So the knee muscle structures as well as the hip muscle structures will be able to produce a better torque than which will be using over the lumbar area. If you want, I can explain once more. The external force, this is the external force. He is taking just towards his body, towards the knee joint as well as hip joint. So the more torque will be produced near the knee joint as well as hip joint when you are comparing with the lumbar area. So biomechanically there will be a less strain over the lumbar area than compared to the hip as well as over the knee. So when he is lifting, see his knee as well as hip will be working more than the lumbar area. Okay, so in the same way, when you are stooping, the momentum you have to calculate. This is a semi-squatting position, this is the exact squatting position. So whenever the joint which is near to the external force, the more near joint will be acting as the closer joint will be able to produce the maximum torque. So during a stoop lift, the trunk flexion is achieved primarily by the thoracolumbar flexion and there is little to no knee flexion, which means we won't be able to act further. So during a squat lift, the spine remains as erect as possible and trunk flexion is achieved primarily by the hip and knee flexion. Other less controversial but still critical factor in lifting in any posture appears to be distance from the body to the object to be lifted, the velocity of the lift and the degree of the lumbar flexion. See here it is a mathematical representation. When you are stooping and lifting the weight, it will be approximately 500 Newton they have to produce. But when you squat and when you lift a weight, there will be less, that is 340 Newton only is required. So further way the load is from the body, the greater the gravitational moment acting on the vertebral column. The greater muscle activity is required to perform the lift and consequently greater pressure is created in the disc when you are going to the stoop posture. So the higher the velocity of the lift, the greater amount of the weight can be lifted, but the greater the load on the lumbar disc. So relative spinal load and the applied retrospinal force increases significantly with the velocity of the trunk flexion. So just see here, there is very limited lumbar flexion. Only hip as well as knee had flexed. When you are getting up, these muscles have to contract. That is, quadriceps as well as gluteus maximus will be stabilizing the area so that the spine as well as lumbar area will be free. So yeah, now we'll come to the last part of the vertebral column or the vertebral column chapter. It is the effect of aging. So over the lifespan, the vertebral column is exposed to recurrent loads because we will be traveling, we will be lifting the weight from here and there. Sometimes we will be gardening. At all the moment, the lumbar area have to bear a particular amount of weight. So, however, the normal age-related changes also occur in the structure of the vertebral column. The vertebral bone undergoes change in the amount and form of the trabeculae. The number of both horizontal and vertical trabeculae decreases with the age. So, when the age is increasing, the horizontal and vertical trabeculae will get reduced and the horizontal trabeculae became significantly thinner. When the trabeculae is becoming thinner, there are more chances the person can get fracture. And this loss can decrease the loads that the vertebra are able to withstand before the failure. So, when this trabeculae is getting reduced, there are more chances loads that the vertebrae are able to withstand before becomes failure. So when you are aging, just make sure your health should be maintained. So you have to strengthen your particular muscle. Just make the areas a little bit free by stretching the muscle. Otherwise, there are more chances the vertebra can be failure before taking a particular load. And next one, when you are discussing the intervertebral disc, what happens is when we are getting age, it will decrease the proteoglycan. First of all, it will decrease the proteoglycan. Then there will be a loss of water. That's what I have mentioned when you are here in the offline classes. When you are drinking less amount of water, there are more chances body can absorb the water from the surrounding areas like muscles or any other area. And when this loss of water occurs, there will be replaced by the collagen, and it occurs dehydration and stiffening of the annulus fiber. It is not only to the vertebral body, but even though the muscles also it can occur. When you didn't drink water properly, there are more chances when you lift something in a wrong posture, there are more chances your back can go for stiffness and catch occur, like cramps occur. So make sure you have to drink water and maintain your health. There have been description of the degenerative zygapophyseal joint without disc degeneration. So the mechanism of this is not as well understood, which means the mechanism is not understood clearly. Still researches are going on. Whenever the disc degenerate and substantive decrease in the height occurs, what follows is hypermobility as a result of slackened capsules and longitudinal ligaments. If a vertebra that is moving forward or backward, moving vertebra forward, that is called as listhesis. When moving the vertebra backward, that is called as retrolisthesis. This is what we call as listhesis. And this is what we call as retrolisthesis. See, if the alignment is like this and a particular vertebra had come in front, this is called as spondylolisthesis. So now we'll go into the retrolisthesis. This is the alignment of the lumbar area. Here we'll be able to see the vertebra had moved backward. That is, retrolisthesis. When a vertebra had came in front, that is called as spondylolisthesis. When the vertebra had moved backward, that is called as retrolisthesis. So in future, when you are reaching third year, final year, or when you clear the exam, you just have to find out the treatment for this particular listhesis. So as I told already, the in listhesis will compare, the vertebra had come in front. So what ideas should be there in your mind? So we have to see which muscles or structure has been affected. So mostly what you have to check is the structures in front, because the muscles in the anterior compartment will be able to pull the vertebra more in front. So the muscles mainly in the anterior compartment which pulls the vertebra are either it can be hip flexor or it can be quadriceps. So if the hip flexor is acting, just imagine this as a normal lumbar curve. That is, which curve is this? It is a secondary curve, or a secondary curve that is called as lordosis. So if the hip flexor is acting more, it will increase the lordosis further. So there are more chances the curvature from here it will move to further more in front. For that, this vertebra have to move little more in front. So once more I'll explain. This is the normal, consider this as a normal alignment of lumbar area. That is a mild lordotic curve, that is secondary curve, also called as lordotic curve. If the hip flexor is acting or if the quadriceps is acting more, the alignment and the posture will get changed and the vertebra have to come little more in front. So as hip flexor is acting, the lordotic curve will get increased than before. That is the action of, action which occurring when the hip flexor is getting tight. Lordotic curve will get increased further. So as you know, if the lordotic curve had increased, this spine had to come forward. So just consider this in mind. So we can suspect, of course, the anterior structure can act further in order to, if the vertebra had come in front. In the same way, you have to check the posterior structure, that is hamstring as well as gluteus maximus over here when you are getting a retrolisthesis cases. So excessive shear force will be generated and zygapophyseal joint will also become subject to more load bearing. The result of these changes is the same as what happens to larger joint of extremities. Damage of certain cartilages including fissures and cysts as well as osteophyte formation also will occur. Now these changes that can lead to localized pain or pressure on the spinal nerve or the central canal in the cervical region. So before that, I want to know whether anyone know about joint of Luschka. So the joint of Luschka are formed between the uncinate process or uncus that below uncovertebral articulation above. They are located mainly in between C3 and C7. So this joint of Luschka or uncovertebral joints are frequent site of age-related and degenerate changes. So this is the joint of Luschka. You will be able to see here. See, they have enlarged the area. So this is the joint of Luschka, and the motion of lateral bending becomes extremely limited when this osteophyte occurs, because as this is in the lateral part. This is situated in the lateral part structures. When the spine is moving laterally, this area have to move further down. So if an osteophyte or arthritis happen over this area, there will be very less movement occurring when you are going into the lateral bending. So as of now, this is the last part of the effect of age when a people or the person is getting aged and when you are seeing a lumbar area. this much biomechanical aspect should be there when you are covering this chapter. Okay. So if you have any doubts, just revert me back. I'll get back to you. Thank you.